Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Captain Stacy Spell, the Commanding Officer of Media Relations, and we're going to be doing a press conference today on the Just Say Hello initiative. And thank you. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Chief Michael Moore.
Captain Spell, thank you very much for introducing myself as well as Mr. Luke. Mr. Luke, thank you for being here on behalf of Councilmember Mark Ridley Thomas. A couple months ago, we were approached by Kerman Maddox. He's the CEO, head of the Dakota communications firm. And an idea that came from his communications firm was, how do we improve relationships? How do we improve communications between all walks of life here in one of the richest parts of the world as far as population, the second largest city in the country, made up of so many different cultures, so many different cultures, as well as ethnic makeup and so forth. But also a community that, like much of America, that is struggling at times in regards to relationships between people of varying races and makeup and background and origins. And certainly here this last year we've seen just an explosion, if you will, of hate, of instances of verbal abuse, intimidation, and actual attacks on the Asian Pacific Islander community as an example. But we also know that hate has increased year after year in this region for the last 5 years, and that instances of race hatred, hate speak, but also in actual crimes have also been on the increase. And the idea is really, like many ideas, is something that was quite simple. And I think it built, at least in my view, it built from a quote that I enjoy reminding myself of from time to time from Martin Luther King Jr. And that his remark was that I am convinced that men hate each other because they fear each other. And they fear each other because they don't know each other. And they don't know each other because they don't communicate with each other. And as we came upon this Just Say Hello campaign, as presented to me, as well as it has been presented to the AIDS Foundation, the AIDS Healthcare Foundation, USC, UCLA, as well as a couple of other schools in this area, it's been a concept of a tagline, if you will, an icebreaker, of giving people who find themselves walking about the city, perhaps standing in line to get a beverage, waiting to get a vaccine, going about their day, and they come across somebody who is from a different culture, perhaps a different ethnicity, sexual orientation, someone that is just not like them. And how often is there an awkwardness? How often is there a barrier, if you will, that seemingly these two individuals whose only difference is their race or their gender or their ethnicity, and yet it seems like they're a world apart. And the concept here is to promote all of us to take that moment and to take that first step and to just say hello. And that by doing so, it humanizes us. It breaks down barriers in such a rapid fashion and allows us to see the humanity on the other side of that conversation. Policing, so much is in need of that. Our men and women are committed to a profession of service, to dedication, to going out every day and making a difference in the lives of people they do not know. And they risk their lives in that pursuit. And yet, with this body of armor, this badge, and this uniform that represents 150 plus years of policing, despite the sacrifices you see behind me of the lives that have been lost in the service of this city, we also recognize that there's been instances of abuse, instances of misuse of our authority. And in doing so, that those instances have created barriers. The Just Say Hello is yet another effort by the department to join in with other community organizations and entities in a campaign of reaching across those barriers, of breaking those barriers down, and establishing the humanity behind this badge and the person that is willing and able to help and serve and support every community here throughout Los Angeles. So we join in this campaign. I want to thank Councilmember Mark Ridley Thomas, his leadership in joining this earlier with Councilwoman Monica Rodriguez, Chair of Public Safety, and others that have joined into a campaign throughout the city that we lead the country and demonstrate that we can break down these barriers, and that it's something as simple as saying hello. So with that, I'd like to introduce and welcome to the microphone Mr. Emerson Luke, Chief Deputy for Legal Affairs and Public Safety for Councilmember Mark Ridley Thomas. Emerson.
Thank you so much, Chief Moore and Captain Spell, for the warm introduction. And I want to thank all of the partners for their hard work on this campaign, including Councilmember Monica Rodriguez, Chief Moore, and many others. Councilmember Mark Ridley Thomas could not be here today, but make no mistake that as a co-sponsor of this initiative, and given the moment that we find ourselves in, it is as timely as it is necessary. During a time where we have seen a rise in hate crimes toward members of the Asian American and Pacific Islander communities, we must not only stand in solidarity against this hate, but we must actively strive to build bridges between a wide array of diverse communities that make up Los Angeles. The Just Say Hello campaign is a critical step in that direction. So today, while the chief so aptly quoted the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, it bears repeating. Men often hate each other because they fear each other. They fear each other because they don't know each other. They don't know each other because they cannot communicate, and they cannot communicate because they are separated. So with that, while he could not be here today, Councilmember Ridley Thomas told me to tell you hello. Thank you so much.
Okay, Steve, it's as simple as that. Questions?
No, I was going to ask if you could actually simplify that a little better, this campaign. You're just simply saying that people just need to take the time to say hello?
Well, our campaign with our rank and file and our personnel is we've acquired a series of face coverings, masks that you see here as a depiction. They'll be coming here in the next couple of weeks. We're going to supply of those, and we're going to give them off to our officers as a means of token to if they see an individual in which they want to say hello, to break that ice, and then offer them a face covering. You know, unfortunately, in this time of this pandemic, face coverings today are the token item of generosity and a gift and a moment of an offering from one person to another, because we find the utility and also the absolute necessity for these as a matter of safety. So the campaign for our people are constantly out in public and engaging the public on a number of instances, and many times there are times in which they're confrontational. There's times in which they're affecting arrest, taking someone in custody for violence or other offenses. But many other times, in fact, the majority of times, they're offering support, they're offering a victim help or assistance, they're offering directions, something as simple as directions to a destination. In those encounters, we're wanting to also personalize it and ensure and give the officer a vehicle, yet another vehicle, to personalize themselves, show the human side of them as an individual, because their heart is the biggest muscle in a police officer's body. But I think many people do not see that. And this is an opportunity, yet another one, in order to kind of break that ice. It's an effort of our community engagement. When we look at our officers each day, whether it's our Community Safety Partnership Bureau at the local level and 10 different programs, our senior leads in each of our 21 stations, our traffic and patrol officers, our gang officers, each of them are engaged in public engagements each day. And this is yet another opportunity to have a topic of discussion and something to say, it's just hello. Well, let's give them that opportunity. Yes.
This is one more tool in your toolbox, and you talked about expanding your efforts last month in response to the rise in attacks on the Asian American community.
Yes.
Can you talk more about those efforts, even outside of this campaign, what you've been doing and your concerns about what you've seen?
Well, we're all concerned, and I think as America we need to be concerned on the instances of hate and how there are forces at play to divide us. To create hatred among us on such simple matters or such immaterial matters of race, if you will, because of our differences, and people are driving a wedge. And unfortunately, we're in a time right now that in this last year with this pandemic, that unfortunately this pandemic was weaponized. It has been weaponized by, in fact, and unfortunately, some of our most senior and powerful figures in this world, elected officials, and we're suffering the aftermath of that. Individuals who somehow now think that they have a safe space, or they can operate and express their hate because they see people in such high offices that have made such just intolerable remarks. And so there is again a consequence of that. And one of the series of efforts that we're doing is, first and foremost, is that every community must know that this department is made up of men and women who protect the very essence of their right to exist, of their rights and dignity as an individual, regardless of from what country they may come from, their origin, their nationality, their documented status, or otherwise. They are an individual, and we will protect them. And those that wish to prey upon communities or individuals of other communities and express some type of dominance, intimidation, scare, or hate crimes will be aggressively pursued and brought before the criminal justice system, and the full weight of that system, which should be brought against them and face the consequences. And I'm proud of our men and women who have gone out in recent weeks and months and demonstrated our commitment to investigate those cases, identify those responsible, and bring them before the criminal justice system. For the Asian American audiences before us today, we hear you and we see you, and we know the pain, and we are going to do everything possible to ensure your safety. Do not pull back from this great America. Do not stay in your homes. Do not be fearful of being out in our communities. We are here to protect you, and we will. What we ask you to do is that if you're a person that right now 4 out of 10 Asian Americans have expressed in a recent Pew survey that they have been subject to ridicule, to intimidation, to verbal harassment. We need your help in bringing those instances to our attention. Individuals who engage in hate speak and hate language and that type of intimidation and scare tactics have no place in our community. And while they may not have committed a crime, their conduct needs to be identified, and we need to have a conversation with them. And we need to bring to their attention that that's not the code of conduct here in Los Angeles. So I want to stress to them that when they see an officer on the street, that is an officer, that is a friend, a colleague, and someone that will support them. Now, we have taken the added steps of adding foot beats and added patrols in Little Tokyo, Chinatown, and Koreatown. Those are our 3 major focus areas, but we also know that we have smaller groups, and we also know we have a business community, and we have other communities that have an Asian American makeup, or concentrations. And what we ask is just that if you do not know who your senior lead is, if you are not aware of our community relations section, if you don't have a point of contact, please reach out and establish a communication with us. We want to ensure that you know that we're here to protect you and to serve you, and that we are joined with you in this period of this dark period in our history. But we will work through it together. And I'm confident that we can get past this point if we as Americans join together and do not let the forces that are on play try to pull us apart.
Chief, what about hate crime in totality? We're focusing on Asian American right now, but I was listening to a report today that crimes against LGBT and Jewish Americans, those are also on the rise, right? Do you have any information about that?
So I don't have the stats for you here today. We recently announced our hate crime stats, our hate incident stats about 2 weeks ago, and the overall trend of incidences as well as hate are up, and they're up against a multitude of identities, whether it be ethnic, sexual orientation, gender. So these are it's just a sense that we're in today that we've got as Americans to do a better job of restoring civility, of seeing each other and respecting each other's and valuing each other's differences. And there are, I believe, individuals in which, let me just call this out. Just a few days ago, I have a retired detective from this agency that is on video using a racial epithet after apparently an aftermath of a minor traffic collision. I'm embarrassed by that. It does not serve. It causes such a corrosive effect on our ability as law enforcement to stand here and say that we value each individual, and to have a former member engaged in that conduct, engaged in that verbal tirade. I'm embarrassed by it, and it's shameful. And yet, I also know that by being willing to call this out, that I also represent the hearts and minds of law enforcement, past and present, that say that doesn't stand for what this badge stands for. That doesn't stand for our code of conduct. And there's no place and there's no safe space in law enforcement for individuals who would express that type of remark.
Where do you rate the department in terms of sensitivity
So I would rate our department as a leader in American law enforcement. When you look at our organization in the last 30, 40 years, just look as you look at our diversity. This is an organization that today, 50% of the organization is Hispanic. That the minority, it's a department of 9% African American, 8% Asian Pacific Islander, and about 30% Caucasian. Women represent nearly 2 out of 10 of our personnel in our sworn ranks, and women represent nearly 6 out of 10 of our civilian ranks. African Americans represent 2 out of 10 of our civilian employees. So diversity, even within our own workplace, is manyfold more increased today and spread across the organization. And that's not just in our ethnic diversity and our gender diversity, but also in regards to sexual orientation. So we have a workforce today that is smarter, that is much more diverse, and I believe much more respectful and inclusive of everyone in this community as being as the rights of their individual and the valuing diversity and the power and the importance of it. Secondly, with our work in our communities, our relationships at a community-based level in our neighborhoods, with our investments with our community safety partnership, our investments in our senior leads, our investment that even in the face of reduced staffing by hundreds of positions, that we have stayed fully committed to investing staffing at our most important and critical level, and that is our basic patrols and our area stations. This is an organization that recognizes that community policing is best done on a corner and an intersection and not from this building. And it's best done when an officer has the time in which to say hello and to have an engagement and have a conversation and help people and support them in their time of need.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you all.